Well, hi guys, it's that time. It's our Bible teaching snippet of the day. We're talking about Jesus' crucifixion and all the details and the account of everything that happened. Today I want to go over to Psalms 22. This is a phrase that people say that Jesus said. It's recorded in the Gospels, and this is what it says here in verse 1. It says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And I want to stop here and tell you this. There is a Bible out there. It's an Aramaic Bible that's been translated into English. And actually what that scripture says in the Aramaic is, my God, you have kept me for this moment. And Jesus was actually saying that God had protected him all through the things that he did in his life here on earth. And now it was time, and that's what he was saved for, was for the hanging on the cross. And that's what Jesus said from the cross. Either way, I just think it's interesting. Look, one little dash in the Aramaic language and the Hebrew language can change the meaning and what a word really is, okay? So it's real easy for older manuscripts to be mistranslated. And guys, either way, it doesn't, I think myself, maybe Jesus might have said that instead, because he knew what his purpose was. And right before he goes to the cross, he tells the boys, y'all are all going to forsake me, but my Father will always be with me. So that's just a little bit of information. But I want to keep going because Psalms 22 is very prophetic in everything that went on at the cross. I want to pick up in verse 6 here. It says, I am a worm and no man, a reproach to men and despised by people. All those who see me ridicule me. They shoot out the lip and they shake their head, saying, he trusted the Lord. Let him rescue him now. Let him deliver him, since he delights so much in the Lord. And that happened at the cross. The high priest and all of those guys that pressured Pilate into crucifying Jesus was out there saying, see, he has saved so many other people and healed them. Why can't he get down? Why isn't God saving him? If he really is who he says he is, why can't he come down off the cross? Well, I can answer that for you. If he had came down off the cross to save himself, we would not be saved. So let me keep going though, because this is very good. It talks about down here in verse 12, it says, many bulls have surrounded me. They gape at me with their mouths, and I am poured out like water. All of my bones are out of joint, and my heart is wax. It has melted within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. I want to talk about that because it says they gape at me and make fun of me, but down here it says I'm poured out like water and all my bones are out of joint. Did you know when they would put someone on the cross, it was just the bar that they nailed their hands to, and they would hook that to the middle piece that stood up out of the ground, and then they would raise it up, and the way that they would slam it down into the ground, it would just jar the person and pull their arms out of joint. And a lot of times if the holes on that crossbar that they used to nail the person's wrist, if their arms weren't long enough, they would pull their arm out of joint and pull it out long enough to get that nail. And by the way, the nails weren't in his hand. The Greek word for that is actually, we call it the hand, but the Greek in it would mean the lower part of the arm, okay? And where they would put a nail is right here in the wrist, and that way the weight of the body would not pull, because it would tear out of the hand and the person would come off the cross. So they would crucify a person and put it there. But right in here is called a median nerve, and they would put a big nail, not a little. I'm talking like the nails that we use for landscape timber. They're 6 to 8 inches long with a big round head on it. But there's also evidence out there that they would take and put a piece of wood, a little square piece of wood, and put the nail through that, and that way the head would have something to hold to as well. So anyway, that's just information. But Jesus, his bones were pulled out of joint, and he looked like a worm because he had no skin left on him. The Bible tells us that Jesus was not even recognizable as a man. He was beaten and bruised so badly he didn't even look like a human anymore. And I'm going to keep going. It says, my tongue clings to my jaws. You have brought me to the dust of death, and the dogs surround me. The congregation of the wicked enclose me. They pierced my hands and feet. I can count all of my bones. They look and stare at me. Watch this. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. But, O Lord, do not be far from me, O my strength. Hasten to help me, deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dog. I want to stop here and talk about the fact that when someone was crucified, their mouth would get very, very dry, and their tongue, their lips would swell outward and be protruded, and their tongue would get really big because their mouth would get dry, because they were beginning to officiate, or they couldn't get their breath. I can't get the word out, I apologize. But anyway, what Jesus, and they gave him the bitter wine to drink, and it was really a taunting, because once they would put that vinegar stuff in their mouth, it would taste really bitter, and they would spit it out, and they would actually be even more thirsty. So it was just another way that they would be taunted on the cross and punished even more. Now, I want to talk about that you can count all of my bones. They stare at me. Watch this. And it says they divided my garments among them and cast lots for my clothing. That is recorded in the Gospels, that what they did is they tore his they ripped his garments off, but there was one garment that Jesus had on. It was a priestly robe, and it was very, very expensive fine linen. And they record that they took that and did not tear it up, but they had a little, they would take one of their Roman helmets, and they would each one put a recognizable little rock, and they knew whose rock it was, and they would swirl that helmet, and the last one's rock that was marked was in it, got the expensive piece of cloth. So that actually happened. They did divide his clothes between them, but the garment was so expensive that they cast lots to see who would win the garment. I could keep going on and on about this, because this really is such a great, because everything that was said in Psalms 22 actually happened to Jesus. And I want to add this before I close. Isaiah 53 also prophesied what would happen to Jesus as well. And what we see in the Bible is that all of these Old Testament prophecies are all being fulfilled through Jesus. So I'm going to let you go today, and I'm going to pick up tomorrow, and I hope you enjoy some of the information I've given you. And God bless you. I love you, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye-bye.